Hello everyone, I am Jenna Ryan. Welcome to Self-Love You, where we learn how to love ourselves. This channel is dedicated to helping you to learn to love yourself and helping you to heal the wounds that are causing you to not know that you are love, that you are pure love at your core, that's what it's all about. And today I'm going to talk to you about boundaries. Boundaries is a huge part of loving yourself. In fact, it's one of the first things that you need to learn if you are going to begin protecting yourself and taking care of yourself and loving yourself. Having boundaries is a form of self-love and self-protection. A healthy child is raised in a situation where they learn to have boundaries, where they learn to have healthy boundaries. Rarely is a family of origin perfect. But in some families, the children are not taught any boundaries whatsoever. That was the case for me. So I came into adult life having absolutely no boundaries. I did not know what a boundary was. I remember when I was in my early 20s going to a therapist, and I was in such pain. I was in a lot of pain because when you don't have any boundaries, you are being tossed to and fro. And I made up this analogy. The analogy is you're like a house that has been in a tornado, and your toilet is over there, and your tub is over there, and your couch is in a tree. You have no walls, no boundaries, no definition, no foundation, nothing. It's like an Oklahoma tornado has just strewn through yourself, and you have no boundaries. You don't know where you stop, where others begin. You don't know much at all. And that's how I started my healing journey, is asking the question, what the heck are boundaries and how do I get them? Back at that time, they didn't have a lot of literature on boundaries. I remember the therapist, I was in bad shape, and he was just like, okay, here is some tapes by Pia Mellody about boundaries, because he really couldn't define it for me either. And he handed me the tapes, and I remember listening to Pia Mellody's tapes that he had purchased and lent me. But being a person without boundaries, I didn't have much self-discipline either and never returned the tapes. But I did listen to the tapes, and I did begin the journey of learning what boundaries are. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, is what I found out in the process. I want to give you information that was not there for me when I started on my healing journey. If someone had been there to tell me what I'm about to tell you, it would have saved me a lot of years of trouble. So I'm going to just talk about boundaries, not having boundaries. When you don't have any boundaries, people will walk all over you. They will play games with you. You will be prey to toxic people. They can pick you out of a crowd because when you don't have boundaries, you don't have a sense of self, and you can't self-soothe yourself, and you're trying to get your needs met from anyone externally that you can find because you're needy, because you have no boundaries, because it all goes together. Believe me, I will pull it all together here in a minute. So I was someone that was abused. I was abused by my boyfriend at the time. I was abused by people. I was abused by bullies. I would allow bullies in my life. I would try to please them. I would try to please others in my life. I would try to please family members. I had no boundaries, so my life was completely someone else's. It definitely wasn't mine. I had to ask other people, is that okay with you? If I live this way, is it okay with you? So finally, I just went to the Bible because it had some rules, and I thought, well, okay, I'll do what this says. Those are my boundaries. And I created for myself boundaries out of the Bible, and that was my only boundaries. However, then I was in the church with no boundaries. Being in a church environment with no boundaries is like being among piranhas, because everybody at church is not godly. Some people at church are out to get you, and they're narcissists. There's narcissists everywhere. There's people who are manipulative everywhere. There's people that will take advantage of you everywhere. And therefore, you need boundaries. But what the heck are they? Great question. Let's answer that. So some of the books that I've read on boundaries is every book you can find. Every book I can find on boundaries, I've read it more than once because it's just so important. But some of the primary authors for boundaries are Pia Mellody and John Bradshaw. And both of those people work a lot with the addiction process and love addiction and addicted to alcohol and drugs and things like that. And they work at the Meadows. And they're also really strong in the codependency circles. So someone without boundaries is codependent, period. Because without boundaries, you cannot be a pure self. You cannot be a whole self. You are combined with others, and you're asking others which way you should go. And you never know, is this okay? Can I do this? Can I tell him to stop? Can I tell this person I don't like that? Do I have to go to this dinner? Do I have to hang out with these people for that Thanksgiving? Can I say no? And if you're asking the wrong people those questions, you're going to get the wrong answers, and you're going to be living a life that is not your own. So one of the things that I had to do was go to therapy. But even beyond all of that, I had to learn what my rights are. That's one of the first things you need to know if you want to learn about boundaries, is you have to know what are your inalienable rights as a human being. You have a right to be mad. You have a right to express your opinion. You have a right to be angry. You have a right to say no. You have a right to not go to the Thanksgiving if you don't want to. You have a right to feel good. You have a right to protect yourself. You have a right to be a person. You have a right to cry. You have a right to share your feelings. You have a right to be upset. You have a right to change your mind. You have a right to ask for things. You have a right to receive things. You have a right to make your own decisions. You have a right to live your own life. You have a right to not live someone else's life. You have a right, no matter what unspoken contracts are written, you still have certain rights as a person. And you are worthy. You are somebody. You do have these rights. I don't care if no one ever told you. That's one of the first things I had to do, was really learn some assertiveness training and learn to get a backbone. And I went and Googled it. This was when Google first came out, even before Google came out. How did I even find that workbook? I found a workbook on assertiveness, and it let me know that I have rights. Now, when I first learned that I had rights, I was not able to enforce those rights, and I didn't have the assertiveness skills to stand up for myself. But I did learn that I had them, and that knowledge, that understanding, and that, intelligence has really stood by me. And I refer to that often. What are your rights? Look that up on the internet. It's a really interesting topic. What are my rights as a person? And the next part of setting boundaries, you have to know what you want. When you were raised in a situation where you have no boundaries, you also don't have a clue who you are, because you were never taught that you are anything, because your parents said, oh, shut up. Children are to be seen and not heard. You're going to get a spanking for crying. You are not allowed to think for yourself. That is the unspoken and spoken message. That's the covert and overt message. You've got to be an attorney, just like everybody in the family. You've got to take over the family. You don't have a choice in this matter. And so you have to learn, if you weren't taught as a child, which a healthy child is taught, your feelings matter. What you want matters. You have a right to want what you want and feel what you feel. So that's another piece of therapy that I had to do in order to get to a place where I could set boundaries, is I had to learn what my feelings were. It's so interesting, and I've been doing my life coaching and talking to people, and, some people don't even know how they feel. When I first started going to counseling, I didn't know how I felt. My counselor literally had to pick up clues from my body language because I was snapping them. She's like, you're angry. And I was like, I'm not angry. And that kind of opened up Pandora's box of what my feelings are and what really is going on inside. So part of having boundaries is knowing your rights, but also knowing your feelings, knowing what you want. Because if you don't know what your foundation is, if you don't know what your feelings are, then you don't know anything about what you want, and you really can't set standards without that information. So it's very important that you calibrate your intuition. Calibrating your intuition means that you begin to learn to listen to your body signals, what your body is saying. You learn to be still, and you learn to stop, and you learn to say, can you tell I've got the fan on? You learn to be still. You learn to listen to your body. You learn to meditate and feel your feelings. So like, let's say you're angry at something. That is a prime opportunity to stop and feel what it feels like to be angry. You'll be able to feel it in your stomach. You might feel it in your heart area. You might feel stuck in your throat. Really learn to experience the bodily sensations that you are having. You've got to come into your body in order to calibrate your intuition. And in order to calibrate your intuition, you really have to get in tune with your feelings. So that's the way I did it. I just used a journal. And if I felt upset, I would say, I feel so upset right now. I feel a lump in my throat. My face feels hot. I have a taste in my mouth of metal or whatever. My heart is burnt, and I began to categorize and create a log of my feelings and the states of my body and how my body was responding. Yes, you guys, can you believe this has to do with setting boundaries? Absolutely. This is huge, because if you're not in tune with what you want and what matters to you, then you're going to have a hard time standing up for what you want. You've got to know what you want. You've got to know what you need. You've got to know what it means to protect yourself in order to do it. So knowing your feelings and calibrating your intuition, I'm definitely doing a video on that. You've got to know your own values. You have to know what's important to you. For me, it's important that I live in it is important that I have a bodily state that feels good. So I was taught in my life that I had to be around certain people. Whether or not I wanted to be around them or not, I was taught that I really didn't have a choice. So once I started learning to listen to my body, my physical body, and learning to listen to my self-talk and listen to how I'm feeling about what's going on in the situation, I learned that I don't like to be around certain people. And this was a specific person in my life that I had been around my whole life. And it made me nauseous. It made me feel bad. And I did not like it. But I didn't realize that until I went back until I started to get in tune with myself. So part of my value system personally is to always take care of myself and make sure that I'm in a position of comfort and I'm happy with who I'm talking to. If I'm in a position where I'm not feeling comfortable and I'm not feeling happy with who I'm talking to, then I know it is time to set a boundary. A boundary can be set in many ways. In this particular instance, it was, no, I'm not attending that event. I'm not coming over. I'm sorry that, you want me to come over, but I'm not. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, but there's somebody's feelings that matter more to me than someone else's. And that is my feelings. My feelings really matter to me. And how I feel matters. And so therefore I honor my feelings by setting boundaries against people, places, things that would cause me to dishonor myself. So that is the case with the boundaries. So you need to know your values. What are your values? You may have values that, you want your children to be treated well. So you know that if your children are not being treated well, that is a value that's being violated. That is somewhere, a place that you need to set a boundary. And so you set the boundary. And we're going to talk all about setting boundaries. As you can tell, I'm all set up here. We've got this is my little room for where I'm doing life coaching. And then lastly, you really have to come into your own power. And you are able to come into your own power when you're able to know who you are, know what you want, and then stand by yourself. Stick to your values. set boundaries and overcome situations. When you're able to do that, you are able to feel better. So suddenly, when you didn't have power before, when you honor a boundary that you set for yourself, suddenly you begin to feel more powerful, and more powerful. Each time you set a boundary and stick to it, you begin to feel more powerful. But there's a lot of work to do even before you can get to the place of setting boundaries. And that's kind of what I'm just outlining here for you. And we will go into more depth about these topics in the coming days. We're going to be talking a lot about boundaries. If you're interested in life coaching, I'm offering life coaching. I have space available for you. I am coaching people all around the world. So if you're not in the USA, we can get on Skype. It is okay. If you're interested in scheduling a session with me, email me at selfloveyouonline@gmail.com. We will get you scheduled and we will get working on helping you to learn to love yourself more and to heal those wounds so that you can live a life of power, happiness, and joy. Okay? Thank you so much, everyone. Talk to you soon.